Whoa, January 28th, 2025. I almost said 2024. I'm still in that zone. Welcome to Heart Centered Marketing. My name's Joey Ragona. I am on a absolute high today, more than ever, because I'm flying through a lot of the time-sensitive projects that I have to do, which is amazing. I have the greatest support in the world. I have the greatest clients in the world. And I have the best friends in the world. One of them is Lauren. She's here, and she is, yeah, we've been friends for so long, and I consider you one of my best friends. So welcome to the show for January
Thank
28th. Can you
you.
believe it?
Likewise.
Wow.
I can't believe that's the end of January.
It's unreal. Has it gone fast or slow for you?
Oh my God, in a blink.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah, I've had some. I think even my daughter was saying, "Oh, this has been the slowest thing ever." Like, are you kidding me? It's so fast. Like, my gosh, it was just New Year's, and we're already in February. Wow. Okay. So, Lauren, um,
Yes.
what are we talking about today? Let's you introduce this. I'm gonna move off camera. That's my excuse to go and look at and set up the Facebook, so I can see the comments.
Okay.
So, what are we talking about?
So the last show that Joey and I did, we were talking about people and relationships and building meaningful relationships based on respect and reciprocity and generosity. And one of the comments, which was so interesting that we thought we'd talk about it more because it warranted it, was, is it possible to have a scarcity mindset and be generous at the same time?
Oh, okay. All right.
And
Cool.
yeah, that was like a really interesting comment. And
Yeah.
so we
Okay.
said that we'd pick up with that.
Beautiful. Okay. Now that you said that, I think I wrote something about that, and I want to pull those notes up so I could reference those too. And
Awesome.
gotta say hi to Collie. She's here live. Nice to see you, Collie.
Hey,
And yeah,
Carly.
that was like an epic topic, and I think it was Lorna who brought it up, and I did a little bit of thinking, and then kind of a reply later. I think I did a post, um, but yeah, let me pull that up. I'm gonna let you start the conversation, but let me pull that up while you're doing that. So, what do you got first? Like, what are your thoughts on it first?
So I think with not I think, I feel with generosity that it has to be discretionary, right? Especially for like people in our field where we give and we give and we give and we can't help ourselves,
Okay.
right? And I think it comes a time where that cannot work. And then we're not allowing ourselves to thrive and be our best. So I think I actually did this last night because something tipped me over the edge and I drew a line in the sand. That it's kind of like what Brene Brown says about vulnerability. Not everyone deserves your vulnerability. It has to
Yeah.
be earned,
Right.
right? And so I feel it's the same with generosity, is that it needs to go where it's valued, where it's appreciated, where in some way or other it is reciprocal, not tit for tat, and you give me this, I give you that. But over time, like this, it's a two-way stream, right?
Right.
And so I think there are degrees of generosity. And so I guess so I don't see that as scarcity though. I see that as discerning and responsible and respecting yourself. I think scarcity is totally different. It's not that there's not enough generosity, it's just you choosing where to put it. Scarcity to me is that there's not enough to go around. So I'm
Right.
not going to help you. I'm not going to share with you, especially if you're in the same industry or field as me, because then there's not going to be enough for me.
Right.
And so for me, and again, we'll talk about it more, and my opinion might change or thoughts might change over the next hour. I don't know if you can be both. Or let me put
Okay.
it this way. I think you can maybe have moments of scarcity, right? We all
Yes.
have those moments where we freak out or we panic or, and we slip into that. But for me, that's a moment in time. And it's based on circumstance. It's not like where I operate from.
Okay.
So so
Beautiful.
maybe in that way they could both exist. But to me, it's like on two different levels.
Yes, and I agree with you. Like I found my notes. I did actually do a post on this. So, and I agree with you. So I don't know if you're going to change the way that you think because we're thinking the same thing that you cannot be both. And there are moments. Again, I'm reading through this and go, "Did you read this?" But you didn't. I don't think you did. We didn't prepare for this, but there are moments where we slip into scarcity. And there are moments where we slip into I'm not going to give or whatever it is, but it's how you live, it's how you operate, the main
Hmm.
way that you operate. So it's kind of like, you know, let me just go through and try to point out a couple things that I wrote down here. Um, Okay, so if you are, here's what I believe about, this is what I wrote. Here's what I believe about abundance versus clarity when it comes to giving, because there's a critical difference between giving and, scarcity and all this. But true givers always operate from abundance. They see endless opportunities, not competition, which is kind of what you just alluded to, right? Um, Real givers are not sitting there calculating what's in it for me. It's always about giving. So when I look at this from my perspective, I know how I operate. Like I want to make a lot of money because I love to give it. I love to change people's lives, and it's not because I'm expecting anything in return. Maybe a smile or a that I just am
Thank you.
there experiencing them lighting up for some reason that I could change their life, right? And this goes back to I remember the moment that that I had this feeling one of the very first times, and it's a crazy example of this, but here it is. I was in Las Vegas, and we got really lucky, me and my friend, and we sat there for 3 days, emptying almost every machine you could think of. Like we just had luck after luck after luck after luck, right? And literally emptying machines. They would come in and pour more money in. Okay, and I was such on a high that I was paying like the janitors and the people clean. Like I was just giving money, hundreds of dollars just to them. And it felt really good. Not that I was a shooter or like, look at me, look at how great I am. It just felt great because just changing someone's life. And that's the first moment that I was like, this is great. The more money that I make, the more I can give to
Hmm.
somebody else who's not making it. That was my first example of this. Is that, is that crazy? Is that resonating with you or?
Yeah. And you know what that makes me think of is the different ways that generosity shows up. I think a lot of people think of generosity maybe in terms of career, right? Helping people, you
Yeah,
know, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel like when you talk about generosity in a business context, that's where
it
people think
does.
about it. But
Yeah,
but as you say, it's a way of being. So what you're talking about, that's who you are, right? I think of examples where one of the things I love to do, and some people may not look at it as generous, I do, is I'll let people cut in line in front of me. If I've got things in my
of course.
cart and they've got, or if I've got 10 and they've got two, I let them go. And I'll
Of
let a
course.
second person go. And I go like, what harm is there? I remember I was in Israel with my niece and we went shopping. And there was the store that we went to that if you were a member, then you got perks and discounts and thing. And they had a special on where for members, if you bought anything that day, you got like a 30% discount or whatever. So we're paying, and there's two girls like next to us, and they don't have a membership. And they had a lot of clothes that they were buying. So my niece let them use her
Nice.
membership. And
Yeah,
then we stood there for, I don't know, 20 minutes. And everyone that came up, we just let them use the card, right? You don't think of those things if it's not in you.
that's right.
And I think that's how you know if it's authentic and real. If you do these things without even thinking, um, it's just happens naturally.
That's right. I love that story because, and here's another part that I want to reference here about scarcity, because I want to give the context of what I believe scarcity is, and it comes
Mm-hmm.
from three things, mainly three things. Scarcity comes from envy of someone else,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you just said,
Mm-hmm.
well, if I share these secrets, then their business is going to boom more than mine, whatever it is. Guilt or anger. That's where scarcity drives, from my experience. So that's why I believe that we can slip into scarcity as givers, as people who just generally, we can have a really bad day, a really bad week, a really bad year in our business, and we can be like, wow, and then for the next year we're like, we're just like holding everything and we're not doing anything. So we can go through bouts of it, but it's when you operate in those for most of your life. So if anybody's
Mm-hmm.
listening to this and disagree with what we're saying, or that you can be both or whatever, like just look at the context of your life, however old you are, and look back and say, what is, like, is it 50-50? How much of it is that you've been just giving and not being in scarcity, and how much of it is that you're living in scarcity?
And I would add jealousy to the list. I think jealousy brings out the worst in people.
Yeah, so is that, so envy
Absolute worst.
and
Yeah, envy and jealousy, same, similar.
they're
Yes.
kind of the
Yeah.
same thing, right?
Same. Yeah.
Envy and jealous. So I'm envious of you, I'm jealous of you. Envy is a lesser word, like it's a, right, but yeah, jealousy for sure,
Right.
for sure.
And so here, look, you know how we said this with generosity, it has degrees, and you know, it's different in different circumstances.
Right.
And I think if you, and this is maybe where that comment came from, if you're by default a generous person, right? It's in your DNA. When I believe when I'll speak for myself, when I slip into scarcity, it's about me. It's not about me, like not the other people around me. It's a situation I'm going through. So I feel scarcity for myself. That I'm still helping other people and helping other people. So that scarcity only affects me and how I'm thinking and the emotions I'm going through. So I guess in that context, you can be both, but it's like the balance is so unequal. And yes, the truth, we all have everything in us. We all have everything. We can all lie. We can all be honest, right? We can all be kind. We can all be mean. We have everything capability in us. And it's just how much, what shows up, as you were saying, what shows up the most.
Right. Yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody watching right now live or even on the replay. By the way, let us know with the hashtag live or hashtag replay when you are watching. If you have a comment, suggestion, you think we're goofballs, like whatever it is, or you totally agree with us, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear that. One of the things that came up in the conversation was the fact that I think that Lorna wrote a reply to it or a question regarding this after the call, because I think she did a little bit of thinking too, and mentioned the fact that scarcity comes from like a receiving part of it, that you're not being able to receive. And um, I don't believe that that's scarcity. I don't believe that you're in a
Mm-mm.
scarcity mode when you can't receive. However, I do know for a fact that givers have a hard time with receiving. And this is what I wrote down. These are three things about I broke them down between difficult receiving and then scarcity mindset. Here they are. Here's an example of a difficulty receiving. A person who volunteers exclusively at local charities but feels uncomfortable when someone wants to help them in return. That's a difficult receiving, right? A mentor who freely shares knowledge and time but struggles to accept recognition or compensation for their expertise. One more for difficulty receiving. Someone who always picks up the check, but feels awkward when a friend wants to treat them. So that's difficulty in receiving. Do you want anything? Do you want to interject there? Add anything there or some comments?
Well, and you might be going there, but that I agree with all of that. And I think it comes from feeling inadequate or not, I don't deserve it.
Right.
Um, and so that I'm just not comfortable, because if I feel I don't deserve it or I shouldn't be getting it, then I'm not going to take it. And then
Yeah.
sometimes those same people, and I've been that person, then you overcompensate with your giving as well.
Ah, okay. Before I get to the scarcity mindset examples, I want to share a lesson, a very short lesson that I learned about this receiving part. I was I took out a person, high regards for a person in the industry, and we went out to lunch, and I was, picking their brain and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, at the end of the day, it was my invite. I was prepared to pay for it, and they took out their credit card and said, they're going to pay for it. And I said, no, 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 it's all good. I got it. And they're like, the whole back and forth thing. No, 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 it's all good. Let me get it for you. And I said, and then again, I said, no, I invited you. And then he stopped me and he said, Joey, when someone offers you this, don't take that away from them. Like, you're actually taking this gift away from me because you're arguing that you want to pay for it. Something along those lines. And I'm
Yeah.
like, holy crap. I'm like, you're absolutely right. So when someone now, after the initial, no, I'll pay for it, you pay for it, and then if you did it again, like, no, let me get this, I normally would argue back. But if you did it like on that second time and said, no, I really want to get this, I would be like, cool, I really want to thank you for that, because you want to do this for, and I'm actually stealing that away. So I've learned to receive in that way. That was an
And
incredible
again,
learning experience.
that's generosity, right? Because you wanted, so it is. Again, this is something I had to grow into, is when someone used to give me a compliment, I always used to have to give a compliment back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you say my dress is nice. Oh, your shirt is nice. Oh, your hair looks nice. Oh, it's right. And you're actually deflecting it. You're not taking it. You're pushing it away. And when you and so when I think about times when I've given a compliment and it hasn't, the person's like, whatever, it doesn't feel great. It feels kind of shitty, you know. Um, because if you give it with the best, it's true, and you give it with like the best of intentions, it's like I'm giving you this gift and you kind of saying, I don't want it.
By
And
me
so,
complimenting you back.
right.
Yeah.
So, and again, there's no black and white. There's no, so I'll give you an
No,
example that
no.
happened today is, so I've got like one of my best friends here. She has helped me so much in so many ways, and like just countless ways. And she emailed me, she needed help with something for a client of hers. And I was so excited to do it because I'm going like, finally I can do something for her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she wanted to pay me. And it wasn't just a flippant thing and didn't mean it. Because she said it a few times. And I said no. And I told her why. And so then it was kind of like, what's the word? Neutralized, right? Because I had a good reason for saying no, and she recognized that. Because for me it was, I felt like, and I said this to you, I feel like I finally have an opportunity to do something for you.
Yeah.
So, so again, there's nuances to it.
Sure.
And so, and every situation's different. And the same as what you said. Like, if you think about it, how does it feel when you say something nice to someone? Oh, like, or you say, women do this a lot. Oh, that's a beautiful dress. Oh, it's 10 years old. Doesn't matter how old the dress is, right? And I think that comes from not valuing yourself enough, maybe, or
Yeah.
not wanting attention on you. And it's confidence. It could be a lot of different things, but it all has an impact, right?
100%. 100%. I feel as though that's the first time I've ever heard that analogy. Because when I get a compliment, I can't even remember a time when I would just naturally bounce back and say, Well, your outfit is great as well, or your shoes are awesome too. Like I don't reciprocate with a compliment. Maybe I should. I don't know. I don't know.
No, no,
May-
absolutely no. Um, but because you so know who you are and you're so grounded in who you are and you've been like that for so long, right? It's I love that about you. It's a confidence. It's just it's a
Thanks.
value in yourself. And I think that's amazing. I think when
Thank
you
you for
give
that.
something back, it has to be genuine. It has to be,
Yeah.
not. I think often it's flippant, like, oh, your dress is nice, and then I feel like I have to say something, and and you don't mean it. Then I think that's insecurity. That's a lack of confidence. But if it's genuine, then that person also feels it. It doesn't feel like I've deflected
Right.
it
And
back.
yeah, it's so true. Kay, I want to come back to this before I forget this on my ADD. I don't. 1 second, Kay. Here's another lesson I learned in terms of the receiving a compliment or something like that. And this was very recent, like only maybe 2 years, 3 years, if that. Okay, and it was the fact of actually receiving the compliment. And I remember I was in a mastermind with Gio and the crew. Were a very small little 10 people in there, and we went through this exercise of actually receiving for 30 seconds, right? Like blank, saying nothing, just receiving it, and it was really really difficult.
Done that, it's very
You've
hard.
done that? Okay. So it reminded me, and I do that now. I'm conscious of it because sometimes when somebody will give me a compliment, I'll say, I'm just going to hold that for a second. I just want to receive that. And I'll just shut up because I realized that even though I wasn't reciprocating a lot of times with, oh, well, your speech was good too, like whatever. Um, I realized that it was, and the analogy in my head is that it's kind of like you coming to give me a physical gift, okay? And you go, here, Joey. And I go, thank you. And I put it away and I just start talking
Yes,
again.
it's
And it's right.
great.
And it's like,
Yes, that's a
holy crap.
great perspective.
And
Yes, I
so
love that.
at least hold the gift and say, wow, thank you for this. I'm not going to open it now. I'm going to open it a little bit later. Or maybe you open it right then and there. Like, is it okay if I open this and kind of see
That's
what this is?
such a
Whatever.
brilliant metaphor.
Thank you.
I often say that to people, like especially when I'm in a coaching situation where not necessarily I'm giving them a compliment, but they've achieved something like big that they've worked hard to. I
Yeah.
literally say like, are you taking that in? Are you recognizing what that? Because also it's the same. Oh yeah, I did it, and like we move on.
Yeah. Let's get to the
And
next thing. Right.
and then you never build your confidence because you're doing these great things, but if you're never going to internalize it and recognize it as an accomplishment, then you're not got you're not going to grow in your confidence and things like that. So I love that with the gift, though. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
I love that.
Okay, back to Kay. Kay says, deflection absolutely comes from our own from low self worth or wounds, but it repels drinking in the abundance of support and love. I love that. What do you think of that, Lauren?
I need
Any
to
insight
read
on
that
that?
again. Low self-worth, but it repels.
Drinking in the support
Yes.
and love. So she goes on.
Yes.
Kay goes on. Where are you here, Kay? When we reciprocate from an authentic place, it creates a fair energy
Yes.
exchange, and that magnifies each person's energy.
Yes. 100%.
I'll let you read this one, Lauren.
Yes, we have to digest the gifts, the accomplishments, or the compliments.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a so tough. It still is tough, but I'm consciously aware of it now. So when somebody genuinely says whatever they say, I'm like, wow, that and I can and it's really more I'm more aware of it when it totally shakes the inner soul. But I remember just going, wow, thank you very much. And we would just go on and I would just do whatever and go on and teaching and something like that. And it's so powerful when you can just sit back and take that in, you know? Anyway, thank you
Yeah.
for that, Kay. Glad to see you here, Kay. Nice to see you. I miss you. If you're here, by the way, live, hashtag live, or hashtag replay for watching the replay. We're talking about abundance. We're talking about scarcity and abundance if they can live together. And Laura and I both believe they cannot. You cannot be a person in scarcity, living in scarcity, and a person who is living in abundance. It's one or the other. Doesn't mean you cannot slip into, as a case of us being abundant people, giving, that you can't slip into scarcity sometimes. But I don't believe that you can be both and live your life that way, like total 50-50.
And I think there's also a difference or distinction between, and I literally, if I tell you what I did last night, like maybe I'll tell you, but there's a difference between boundaries and scarcity. If you've got boundaries, does not mean that you have a scarcity mindset,
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother level. I didn't
right?
even think about that. You're absolutely right. We even talked about it today on the Academy because, one of the things that I was sharing with them is the 5 success secrets of millionaires. I've consolidated, or I've condensed everything that I've learned. And one of the things we talked about today, and these are the things I even said today, like if there was only 5 things that I would talk about for the rest of my life, it would be these. This is the secret to all of them. And,
I'm
and it's not
taking notes.
something where it's like, oh, I've never heard that before. So one of them is the simplicity over complex. That's what we talked about today.
Mm,
Simplicity over complex, right?
yes,
But part of that comes from boundaries. Part of that comes from saying no and the power of saying no rather than maybe, or I'll think about, like, whatever. It's just knowing what your boundaries are to simplify your life so it doesn't be, it's not always this
100%.
complex thing and overstimulation and all these things going on. Because as givers, I don't know if this is true for you, but it is for me. I'm always saying yes. It's like, no problem, no problem. I'll get to that or whatever. And so you're always saying yes. And it just complicates everything, which is a violation of the simplicity of the
Yeah,
millionaire secret. Like, simplicity. I only do this, and
huge.
no, I can't do that right now. It doesn't fit into what my genius zone is, whatever. You had something to add there?
No, 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 no. I agree 100%.
Thank you. Okay, so Kay. Okay, you do that for us, Joey, too, as a coach. You encourage us to pause and just honor. Thank you. Yes, I do. Yes. One of the things is, yeah, because if I'm like you, Lauren, I will say, if I give someone a compliment, they accomplish something, and then I will call them out. They're like, great. So how do I scale? Like, how do I, like, hold it? You gotta take this in. You have to understand, like, how far you've come. And even if they're struggling and they're like, I haven't gotten this far and I haven't done this. Well, let's look back at how far you did come. Did you accomplish this? And here's another thing that I do is I have um, a glow database. I call it glows. And what glows are gratitude, learns, opportunity or obstacles that you've been pushing away that you're attacking, or something like that, and wins. That's a glow. So
I'm
every
taking
day I
lots of
look.
notes tonight.
Thank you. Um, so every day I look at what's a glow, and anything can fit into a glow. It doesn't have to be all 4. So I have a glow database, right? So somebody
Love
might say
that.
something nice on Facebook, or somebody might send me a message on Messenger and say, hey, I just read your article on Kajabi or something. I really loved it. I'll screenshot that and put it into my database and just say, got a props today, got some feedback, whatever. And at the end of the year, I look back at all of the glows and say,
It's amazing.
wow, like, I actually had Lauren on, 25 times this year. Amazing. I'm so grateful for that, right? Like, because at the end of even when we're getting into a down or a slump, and you keep a journal or whatever you want of stuff that just happens, you look back and say, and like, you know what? Maybe it's not so bad. And that's just the way that I operate, just to get myself back into out of a funk, if there is one, but more importantly, to reflect on the year, because a lot of people just don't do that. They don't look back at the year and say,
No.
especially the small wins. I'm talking more about the small
Oh,
wins.
100%.
Yeah,
They just get tossed aside.
all the time. So I make it a habit of doing of everything. not everything. I shouldn't say that. I'm lying. It's I try to get as much as I can.
Much,
But
yeah.
even if it seems that anybody listening to this, it seems like so petty to you, like why would I screenshot that or why would I celebrate that? Doesn't matter to anybody else. You don't have to prove it to me or Lauren or anybody else.
Exactly.
If it makes
For
you
you.
feel darn good, put it into a database or write it down. There's a reason you had the feeling of like, wow. I'll tell you another one. Like here's another one. I just got one of the I have a really great network of friends, right? Like that I look up to. And a couple of times this week, they liked my post or they said something on my post. And that made me feel freaking awesome. It was a dopamine rush. I'm like, wow, right? So I put that in my data. And then I sent the message. I said, hey, really want to thank you for this because it makes me feel awesome. Exactly what I just told you, I told them, right? And it wasn't to get points or anything like that. It was like, I truly feel this. And I just wanted to acknowledge that you made me feel awesome just by liking that. And I put that in my database. So you don't think that, in November, I'm going to forget totally about this. And when I look back and go, oh yeah, that's right. That was so cool. And it also, because I'll tell the reason why this made me feel good. It was because it validates to a point of what I'm doing. That's it. It doesn't matter what anybody
Mhm.
else thinks if when I say that, but to me, it was like, wow, someone else that I looked up to or look up to is validating what I'm talking about. So I must be on the right track because I respect them. You know what I mean? It's the same thing as if one of your mentors go like, hey, I loved that. Keep going. Right. It would make you feel freaking awesome, wouldn't it?
And that comes back to what we spoke about last time is reciprocity, right?
Mm.
So if someone does something and it makes you really feel good, imagine how good it makes them feel to be acknowledged for that. Like we don't
Right.
thank people enough, we don't express appreciation enough. And you know what happens? Because this is what I've had a lot of straws on my camel for the last few months, is that people will just stop doing it, understandably. People do stuff, and you never acknowledge it, you never appreciate it, you never thank it. At some point, that's going to get old,
Yeah.
So again, like, you can't assume that people will know you appreciate it or it means something to you, right? But again, it's like all authentic. It's just got to be real. I think too many
100%.
people just have an agenda and everything's scheming and everything's street. Well, now, if I thank them for this, then what? Just be honest. Just be a good person for God's sake.
Yeah, people can see through it. They can see through it. Some
They
things
do.
that, this I'm going to reach out and say thank you for the pose or whatever. They know it, but when I'm giving an actual reason why and how I feel, and I think that goes back to what you said at the beginning, where the vulnerability, like you have to protect the vulnerability or something like you
Mhm.
said,
Yeah.
like that was and what did you say? So remind me of what you said
I
because I think
said,
it
and it's
relates
not
to
what
this.
I said. It's not what I said. It's what Brene Brown said. So I have to just
Brene Brown.
clarify that. Is that not everyone deserves your vulnerability.
Okay, right. So I believe that person did deserve my vulnerability of like, here's why I'm thanking you
Yeah,
because you made me feel this way, and blah, blah.
right.
Anyway, yeah.
But when we're talking about the small wins and not just dismissing them. So here's the thing: you don't get big wins without small wins.
Right.
Right? The small wins
Right.
make the big wins.
Right.
And if you don't appreciate the small wins and you don't have gratitude for that, you're not going to appreciate the big wins either.
Right.
And that's going to, I believe, that changes the course of things.
I
If
agree
you
with you.
can't be grateful and, you know,
Yeah, I
if you
agree with
just
you.
dismiss
That's
things, then,
yeah, because
yeah.
even when we were talking about making money or all these other bigger promises, that's why I like going with smaller promises. So, for example, thank you, Kay. By the way, you're going to start doing it in Notion as well. It's such a here I'm going to use the overplayed word now. That's a game changer, right? So, um, you're going to love it. Um, dang, where was I going with that? See, my ADD kicked in.
About the small wins and not appreciating the small wins at the big ones.
Yeah, so okay, dang it, it'll come back. It'll come back. So appreciating the small wins. Has something to do with. It'll come back. I'll interrupt you when it pops back into my head.
Good, please do. And so for me, like you know me, I'll give and give and give, and I love it and whatever. But as I said earlier, they can't, everyone, eh, I believe everyone eventually reaches like a breaking point in a way where people may
Mm-hmm.
tolerate. Like I see this in a lot of with the coaching that I do when I'm coaching someone and there's relationship issues. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they go, oh, well, she doesn't mind, you know, didn't I go, well, eventually it's going to catch up. You know, if you keep doing that, do you think it's
Yeah.
going to be okay forever? Like we all have like our cup can only take so much. At some point, it's going to be enough. And that's when people go, oh, you've changed. Yeah, what, you know, there was a reason. And then it's the same thing. Oh, you changed. I
Yeah. Yeah.
did, but
Yeah.
for good reason.
Yeah.
It's a little bit off topic,
No,
but
it's
I
not off
guess what my
topic at all.
point is being explicit in recognizing people and acknowledging them and thanking them. Like how much effort does it take? Someone
Right.
goes out of their way to say something nice or do something nice, and you can't even say thank you.
Right.
Then no, you don't get my generosity. Sorry.
Right. Okay. I am going to
So
go back to the scarcity mindset. I'm going to close the loop on
yes,
this
let's
if you're
go there.
watching. So now
Yes.
here's examples of scarcity mindset. We talked a little bit about the abundance and giving, and then here's a
Hmm.
scarcity mindset example. Holding back knowledge from colleagues for fear that they will become more successful. Totally scarcity.
Hmm.
Only giving when there's a guaranteed return on investment. So this one I see a lot
Hmm.
of. Doesn't matter about even money, but like, hey, I see this a lot and I call it out all the time with online marketing. It's like, well, I gave you a free PDF, I gave you a free video, now you owe me money, go buy my course. That's a scarcity mindset, unfortunately. So if that's triggering anybody, you know, hey, you could fix it, right? But it's a scarcity mindset that you owe me. Another one is stopping charitable giving when business growth slows down. This is a big one because, and I get this, and I'm not talking about you don't have money to feed yourself. Like, I'm not talking about that. So here's another thing that helped me with this one that I did when my business was struggling in 2019. So I set up a give fund because I split out my money coming in, right? Here's goes the taxes, here's goes.
Hmm.
So I set up a give fund which was only 1% of all the money coming in. It's nothing. And so every dollar that comes in, 1% goes into that account, right? And it stayed there throughout the worst parts of my business, throughout the ups and downs of the business. And I'm thinking, wow, like what am I doing this for? But then the spreadsheet, you know, I do it and it's like, well, it's only $10. I didn't make any money this week. It's like it's $10. Am I really gonna be that person? Like I'm just gonna put that $10 away. Now, take it for whatever you want. You don't have to follow my lead. You don't have to agree with me. It's all good. Now here's one of the things where it's not only helped me because I believe that the you're putting it out to the universe and you'll get stuff in return. So but it's not an expectation. I don't want to come across that way. It's not like, well, I'm doing this, I better get something back. It's because it makes me feel freaking awesome when I can give to things like the local cat shelters and things like that. It just makes me feel freaking awesome that that money has been allocated for whatever I need, and at the same time, it's helped me be a disciplined in my business because there are times, Lauren, where it's been like I can't pay this bill, I can't pay my Visa bill, so
Hmm.
what am I going to do? And I look at that fund and there's $500 in it or something. I'm like, let me take it from there. I'm like, no, that's not that's not my money. It's
Mm.
for other people that I've allocated for. So it's helped me in my discipline of do something else to make some money to help you pay the bills or bring the business up in a healthy way. I know that was a lot to take in, a lot of different
No.
perspectives there, but
So here I'm going to give a shout out to you. You know how I tell you every time we connect offline that I don't know anyone who's remotely in our peer range, even more so, peer or more so, that has as much content as you, valuable content as you do. I literally don't.
Thanks.
And so that shows how much you've given and how much you've put out there and how consistent you've been. And that's consistent in serving, right? It's a reflection of that. And I don't know how many people would not have taken the $500.
Yeah. If it was in
And
a
so
desperate
I'm just saying
situation,
it.
I would have taken it. I want to be clear. We're not talking about
Yes.
desperation, but yeah. Okay, cool.
But again, that's your DNA. This comes back to I don't know, you are the perfect example of how you do anything is how you do everything. And this just confirms it.
Wow. Thanks. That one I got to take in and
It's
receive.
true.
I
You are such an inspiration. Honestly, there are not a lot of people like you. I'm so grateful to have this time with you. I really am.
Thank you. I
So whoever works with you, whoever's in your programs, I really hope they recognize what who they're with. Because that's also easy to take for granted. You kind of start seeing through people because you see them a lot and you're familiar with them. But you know what? Like whoever's in your group, just take a minute and think like how lucky you are to be around someone like that, like Joey. I sometimes we just need to me, it's not generosity, but it's appreciation. And to me,
mhm.
like it's a little cluster: appreciation, generosity, kindness. It's all like a little club, the kindness club.
Wow. Thank you. I really that makes my heart sing, and it's great to hear that. I don't take it for granted at all. I just, yeah, I don't know what to say. I'm speechless because it's to me sometimes when I hear that and I used to deflect it or just disregard it, and you're absolutely right. Maybe it's just because of that's just who I am. Like, and I don't want to stand on a soapbox here. I don't want to, but it's more of
No,
why
I
why
put
is
you
that
on.
so why is that so different, right? Because when we're in our zone of genius or however we live, and even when somebody listening to this, when somebody compliments you on, wow, you can do math like that so fast or whatever, and they're like, yeah, so what? We always, because it's just who we are, so we don't understand it from another person's perspective. So I really appreciate hearing it from another perspective, and thank you. And yeah,
Pleasure.
thank you. Um, Go ahead. You were going to say something?
So here's the thought. Here's the thought that comes to mind: is we all judge people. Right? I mean, we do.
Yeah,
If anyone says they don't, then you're not being honest.
right.
And so here's the thing that I think is important. Not is important to remember is when you're judging someone because of how they may be showing up with you or with you maybe, or how you judge them for how they are with someone else, you don't know the backstory. And so, for example, you may see someone show up in a particular situation and go, wow, like that's so selfish or cold or whatever. And then you judge them and you label that person, but you don't know the context. There's always a context. And unless you know and understand, because we behave a certain way for a reason, whether it's, limiting beliefs from childhood or whatever it is.
Yep.
So when you judge someone, just, it stops you think, there's a story there. It might not be the right story. It might not be a good story, whatever it is. But people don't show up how they do for no reason.
Right.
And so unless you know the whole story, don't be so quick. You haven't walked in their shoes.
Right.
And I know, again, it's a little bit off topic, but I don't know. It just came to mind to share.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic because I was on a call with the Meg Academy group today, and then one of my clients asked a question regarding how to deal with something. Um, and then I said, "Well, here's how you kind of would here's my thought." And the long story short was like, okay, I go, you probably don't want to do it that way, but or say it that way because I'm more direct. And she's like, yeah, I'll probably tweak it a little bit. And it was just funny because I I'm just that person who says things the way that they are and no filter a lot of times. And so, and then it was just funny. And the reason I'm saying this is because I said at the end, I go, yeah, probably anybody that's in your group is probably not going to be a fit for this group because just the way that I would approach this, you know?
Right.
Um, yeah. So that was, I don't know if it was connected to the thought, but
No,
whatever.
and there was something I wanted to say. Oh, so I believe a sign of how certain you feel in yourself and your values and your worth is to be able to set boundaries and to able to say no and let other people's opinions be water off a duck's back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I've been a people pleaser for too many decades.
Mm-hmm.
And as you so used to overgive, say yes to everything, never mind how it affected me. And now, I mean, this last month, like it's, as I said, it's been one thing after another. And I drew some hard, literally last night. And I'm not worried about anyone who doesn't like it.
Good.
I'm not, because I'm in, and they may look, well, however they look at it, the way I look at it is because I want to give to the people who deserve it. You know, when, like what Brené Brown says, not everyone deserves it. And I want to give it to the people that appreciate it and value it and don't take it for granted. And
Right.
so instead of my energy going too wide, no, it's going to go more to where it should, in my mind, should be going. And I honestly, I don't care if anyone judges me. I won't know anyhow. And even if I did know, it's like, it's
Yeah.
okay.
I'm the
And
same as
so
you.
all the, no, so that all these things are a reflection of where you are in your growth, in your confidence, in how you value yourself. And it's, it's an evolution. You're never there. I had a situation this week where I did something that maybe even a year ago I wouldn't have done.
Really.
But I'm going, I value myself more than letting that happen. And I don't
Awesome.
really care what the other person thinks. This
That's
is about
awesome.
me. So again, that's not scarcity, right? And I think what's important is to get a definition of scarcity, which you did really well. You shared
Thank
really
you.
well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But I think these are such important things to reflect on and just like journal on, and just because it all helps you crystallize your identity and what you stand for. And when you know what you stand for, then you stand for it unwavering.
Right.
But when you don't know what you stand for or you're not certain, then that's where you can kind of be like a chameleon. And
Yeah.
that doesn't feel great. I
Did I ever?
love, no, go ahead, yeah.
No, I'm just gonna say, did I ever share the mediocrity line with you?
Mm-mm.
The mediocrity line. I wonder if I could. My iPad's connected. I wonder if I could share my iPad. Can I do that? Let me just try, because it'll make more sense if I draw it out. I love sharing this, and I didn't make it up. It was Rich Sheffrin who was on stage when, and I've heard this analogy of some kind before. When he did this, it opened my eyes. So anyway, let me see if I could share my iPad.
So while you're doing that, here's another perfect example. When you, generosity is giving credit where where credit is due. When you go, this isn't mine, it's someone else's, is when you try and take it for yourself.
Right.
And besides being dishonest and deceitful, whatever, but why would I take it as my own when it's not,
Yeah,
right?
the
But a lot
the
of
o-
people do. A lot of people don't give credit where things came from.
if I can remember
And
where it's going to come, where it came from, I'm going to give them credit.
and even if I can't remember, I'll say like, this is not mine.
Yeah, this isn't mine.
This
I
is right.
So
Yep.
here's the mediocrity line, and
Oh
it's
yes, I can't
basic.
wait.
You can see the iPad, right?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so it's really simple, and this is where people, like you said, people pleasing, they are in this middle piece, which we'll call mediocrity, right? And there are people. Then there is two extremes on this. And one is, forgive my drawing, is the heart. And the other one, it should have been green, but anyway, whatever. The other one is this big X, where I don't want anything to do with that. I don't agree with you, whatever. Okay. And so what I understood of what Rich was talking about was that, so many people live in this mediocrity. So whenever they talk about something that they're passionate about, they like, or whatever it is, they start moving. They start moving to the side over here. They start like, hey, I love dogs, or whatever, your politics or whatever, right? Whatever you're talking about, I like this thing. And the people over
Mm-hmm.
here, your family, your friends, whatever, or the internet's now, they start pulling you backwards. They're like, no, 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 you can't talk about any of this stuff. And so, with a fear of us pissing anybody off, we're like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. So, this is where
Mm,
most
not rock the
people,
boat. Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to do anything, right? So, most people just live their life in mediocrity. They're like, as soon as they start getting flack from one side or the other, like, I'm not going to do any of that. And this was so long ago that I decided, yeah, that's not who I am. I'm not going to do this. So this is the part where I now added to the framework, or to whatever you want to call this. So I call this part of growth living on the left, because the heart is on the left, right? And even on our body, the heart is on the left side. We're towards the left side.
Mm,
So
I
I
love
call it
that.
living
Yeah,
on the left.
I love that.
So the more that you move towards living on the left, fully living on the left, the more you are polarizing to these people over here, the more haters you get, the more
Mm-hmm.
slack you get, all of that stuff. However, there are people over here, right, who absolutely love you. Okay? And so look at anybody in history, Steve Jobs, even if you want to look at the dark side, right? That there's dark people who still, whether you like it or not, or whether I want to believe it or not, they were living on the left. They were going out and talking about something or doing something that they fully believed. And they had followers and they had haters. Okay? Do you agree?
Yes. And I heard someone say this, and I can't remember who. If and haters might not be the right word, but if you don't have haters, you don't stand for anything.
Right. If you don't have people disagreeing with you, if you don't have conflict, if you don't, whatever it is, whatever it is. So this is what happens. So I always talk to people and I say, move toward living on the left. If you can get to this level, right, you will have more pressure from over here. This side, you'll have more pressure. You will start to feel it. But the more you move towards
Mm-hmm.
this, you'll start to less care. And what I said
Yes.
is, and what I think you just said is, you're starting. You're here. You're like taking the first step towards living on the left, in my view. And you're like, yeah, I would have not done that. I would have, gone back here and not rocked the boat. And now you're like, you know what? I really don't care what that person thinks. Did this make sense?
Yep. Yes. And also, this is such a great visual, but the more you go to the left,
Yes.
the more the right gets smaller. Not because the number of people gets smaller, but it's kind of like, think of you driving on the highway, right? It just It's kind of in the distance. The further away you go from it, the smaller it gets, the smaller the impact,
Ah,
until eventually it's like
that is so
it's not
cool.
even
You know
a
what?
it's not even an issue.
I've never even looked at it that way. You know, here's your little X, and here's your big heart, right? So you're
Yeah.
actually going this way, and you're increasing everything.
Yes, going away from scarcity.
That's amazing. Like perspective, right? Is like that's in the distance now. That's the horizon, or that's way far away. I can't see it anymore. That's
And it's not an easy thing to do, because when you're in
no,
that middle place, those people are a big part of your life, and they matter in some way or another. So and that's why a lot of people don't do it, because it's not easy to do.
that's
It's
right.
not easy to say sometimes I'm not going to engage with these people anymore. It's going to be engaged in a totally different way. It takes courage to do that.
One hundred
But
percent.
that's why you have to be clear in who you are.
Yep. You want to read
And
Kay's comment
oh,
there?
yes. Oh, I love this too. I enjoy being a disruptor, because transformation often begins with disrupting, rocking the boat so people can come into a new real of thought and existence.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah. I'm like UK. I've been a disruptor all my life. I just love it. I'm looking at all the options of how, what else, what is the difference? What is the opposite of this? And looking at look at all everything that I've talked about for the last 5 years, even more than that, dream clients and unfunnel and all these things, and it's funny now because I look at it because now everybody is really moving toward simplicity in their business, taking funnels down and doing all these things. And I'm like, cool. This is really cool. Like it's again validation that excuse me, I didn't let go of it. I remember being called out so many times. Only 5 years ago, 4 years ago, people that are no longer unfollowed and this is blocked and all these other things too because of that kind of disruption or that kind of what is the word flashback or flockback or whatever it is.
Pushback,
And
yeah.
yeah, pushback. And so I was on that line and I just kept moving. And like, you know what? I have the power to shut this noise off as much as I can. I'm going to shut that noise off and I'm going to keep going. That's why I just said to you, even with that little story of the validation from my colleagues and friends, like that they like it. And because the same messages over and over and over again for 5 years. And I'm like, okay, cool. I did that right. I did the right thing. And even if I didn't get it, I would still keep going. And like you said, I planted the flag in that hill. This is the hill I'm going to die on. And this is what I believe. Kay
So you
says,
know what there's oh, yeah, let's listen to Kay first.
yes, thank you. Thank you, Kay.
Yeah.
Now they're trying to copy you. You see it too, right? You see it too, Kay? I'm
That's
sure
a,
you see it.
that's a compliment
It is. I used
when
to,
people copy you.
yeah, I learned that one early on when I was a DJ. And that used to really get under my skin because DJs would come to the booth and write down the exact mixes and like what song went to another, which was a big thing back then, right? Because a lot of guys don't know how to mix stuff, and I would be like, "Man, they're stealing my stuff. They're gonna go play the." So then it was like, yeah, and that's when I first learned it. Like, no, that's a huge compliment when they're taking their time to come with it. At that time, there was no phones or anything, like an actual pad and paper and write things down.
It's still not nice to do, but it is a
I know.
compliment.
Yeah.
But here's a conversation I have with clients so often. There's two parts to it. One is the middle is people stay there because ultimately it's comfortable. Even if it's
Yeah.
not pleasant, it's comfortable, right?
Hmm.
But eventually guaranteed that comfortable is not going to be comfortable. You're going to be unhappy, whatever, however that shows up, right? But
Yep.
whether you go to the left or to the right, it is going to be hard. So what
Yep.
I always say to my client, nothing is easy. It's hard to be healthy. It's hard to be unhealthy, right? So which hard do you want to choose? You can choose the hard on the left where you're still not going to have what you want, or you can choose the hard on the right, or you can choose the hard on the left where you have the potential to have what you want. Or you can choose the hard on the right, where you're pretty much guaranteed you're not going to have what you want. So,
Exactly.
either one is going to be hard.
Yep.
Nothing's easy. Oh, I
Yep.
don't think anything's easy.
No, it's not. And like, I think that what you're saying as well is that like even doing nothing is a choice, right? Even staying
Yes.
right there
Oh
is
my
a
God.
choice.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Saying nothing to me screams the loudest, is the loudest volume.
Yeah. And even not moving. Like if you're sitting there and say, well, I've done this
Yeah.
for X amount of years
You've made a
and I'm not doing
choice.
anything
Then
else differently, you're not choosing anything. You're just choosing to stay exactly where you are.
you're
And that
choosing that's okay.
I don't know what makes me even makes me madder about. I think it's that. I think it's that like yeah, you're not even trying at all. You're not even doing
But
anything.
here's the thing. I don't mind. You want to not try? That's fine. But don't complain then.
Yeah, so I'm talking about clients in this case. I'm talking about coaching clients or something where that irritates me when somebody does not
Yeah.
they just choose not to do something. I I'm a
Right.
problem solver. So I like to I say to all clients now is go create a problem for me. Go create a problem. Because that means that they're going out and they're doing something, right? They're doing something that is moving them out of their comfort zone and they're looking to create a new problem that we can solve together. And to me, that's forward movement. So it doesn't do any
Mm-hmm.
good for me and you to sit here for the next year, me coaching you, thinking about situations that could or could not happen, right? Doesn't do any good whatsoever. So we could have options, and I can say to you, great. What can happen here? This can happen. That can happen. Okay, great. Then go do it, and let's find out what happens. Right? That's it. That's to me. I'm an implementer. I'm in just go do that. So bring me another problem, and if it worked, then keep going. And then there's going to be a problem sooner or later, and bring that problem to me so we can fix it.
So one of my rules or whatever of coaching clients is no progress, no coaching. And progress, I don't care if the progress is backwards. That's progress because you learn from it.
Yes.
But if you're not you don't do anything, then we're just done. We're done. There's no coaching. Not wasting your time, not wasting my time. Something has to happen.
Yeah. See.
And
So.
eventually and eventually, but also something has to happen properly. Don't go through the motions and just have something to show because, oh, I did this. No, if it's like half-assed, then you didn't do it. I'm very clear with the standards of my expectation with the clients I coach, and I know you are too.
Yeah.
And
I'm
that's
getting.
why I'm not, we're not for everyone. But if
No.
they're working with me, these are the rules. You know it going in. I stick to those rules, and it's not for everyone. And I don't expect it to be. I don't want it to
Yeah.
be.
That's the thing too. I'm learning to be better and clearer about this because of just stepping into this is who I'm the best for. Because again, learning your superpowers. So to me, a superpower is a problem. Like I can fix problems, I can point you in the right direction, that kind of thing. I'm not great at cheerleading. Like I just don't
No,
want to
me
sit there
neither.
and go, "Hey man, that was fantastic." Okay,
Yeah.
you feel like you know what I mean. Like so, it's not that I don't give compliments and encourage and all that. That's not what I'm saying. But this is going back to what I was saying is about somebody who does not move, and so this is where let me try to paint this for you. And it's more of if someone doesn't move in my world, if they're a client and they don't move, then what'll happen is eventually they'll stop, they'll quit or they'll do something. And there's no blame. It's not that they're blaming me or them, so whatever it is. It's just because I believe that they're, I don't even know the word, embarrassed, or they're coming back with the same problem or the same question because they haven't moved, right? They haven't taken a thing. And
Hmm.
that quiet, just yeah, it silences their input eventually, and they're like, "Well, this isn't working for me anymore," right? So then they'll move on, and that irritates me because they're not moving. If they would move, then they would see, like you said, either they would see progress. Well, that didn't work. Well, let's do something else, right? They would see some kind of progress. But because they're not moving, they would judge everything around like this stuff doesn't work or coaching
Yes,
doesn't work or
of
whatever.
course.
Right?
100%.
Whew, I'm glad I got that out the right way to make to
100%.
yeah, so
It's those are the people that don't take ownership. Those are the people that don't generally succeed to the extent that they can
yeah.
because they're not willing to see their part in it.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's like shape up or ship out. I don't care if you ship out. It's your life, and I'm not judging you because lots of people ship out and they're very happy. Maybe they're even happier than me, but that's fine. But this is how this little play box works.
Yeah, that was a big realization to figure to understand like why this was like before when I was having a more of a free um, coaching thing. And thank you, by the way, Kate, for all these amazing comments. So great. I'm gonna bring your last one up in a second. There was like a free thing I was doing years and years and years ago, and I noticed that about 6 months in that the attendance was going down. Like it used to be, I don't know, whatever it was, 100 people, and it was
Hmm.
going down. And then I looked back at this is why I love data. So I looked back at transcripts and like calls and like I noticed that a lot of the questions were the same from people that were no longer attending. So that's what I
Mm.
figured out is that they're either embarrassed to come back and ask the same question, or they feel guilty that they haven't done anything with the advice they already got. Now, I'm not saying you can't ask a clarifying question a week later or two, like, but when it's the same thing again and again and again, and you go into a coaching environment, you say, okay, who's got a question? And you're asking the same freaking question. And 4 weeks in, 5 weeks in, the guy's like, so what have you done? Well, I still don't know. That's when they're not taking ownership, or maybe they, I don't know. They're just like, I'm not going to ask any more questions because I feel, and they may not consciously know this. I don't think they consciously know this, but that's what I figured out. Like, why is that person not coming back anymore? And when I looked back at the weeks, the question was always the same. So the advice was like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I've already kind of said this. Like, what have you done so far? So they're trying to come up with scenarios of how to deflect that advice and making up more stuff that could go wrong. Am I on track here?
Yes. Yes.
Lauren says, I mean, sorry. Kay says, love that, Lauren. Inertia in action is a sign that a client is not for me too. I invite them to find someone else if they are there. Yes. Yeah. I
Yeah.
at this point, I mean, there's no reason why we shouldn't work with people that don't charge our batteries. That we can step into being who we are and not feel guilty about it because
And
we all have flaws. Like I just said today, there's a certain way that I will approach a situation where my client would like, well, I would approach it
mm-mm.
differently. That's totally cool. You go do it to your group because I'm not talking to your group, right? And that's totally cool. But if I had to pretend to be something I'm not, that's where my genius doesn't flow through. It doesn't help them at all
Mm-hmm.
whatsoever. And I think, and I know for a fact that you're not fully present when you are not yourself because you're trying to filter out how am I going to respond? How am I going to talk? What am I going to say? These kind of things. I don't know if that's true for you about your coaching, but that's how I stepped into because when I first started, it was more of, man, I don't know if I should be saying that. I don't know if I should be doing that.
I'm like, from day one, I've been like brutally honest because um, when I was hiring a lot, I would say to people at the end of the interview, I go, "You're a good coach, and you're going to be miserable here. You're going to be miserable here because how this team operates is not how you're going to thrive, and I'm doing you a favor." Or I'd say to them, "This is how it rolls here, and this is how it rolls." if that is not going to bring out the best in you, then don't take this opportunity, even though it's on the table.
Yeah, you told me that too. And that's when you were just starting.
Mm.
Like, I will be forever grateful for you for that. Always. I mean, that had to be a pivotal moment in my career. I
Wow.
truly, because I talk about that all the time. And it's like, I remember that like it was yesterday. And it
I remember
was,
that conversation.
yeah,
There was a part of me, I remember that because I will never forget that. And there was a part of me that when I left, I felt a bit bad because I thought, I hope I didn't burst his bubble, but I had to say it. Um, and
not
here's
at
the
all.
thing, you know what? You, you can say hard things and honest things without, in a kind way, right? So, um,
I think that,
you know,
that you did that exactly. You did not come across aggressive or burst my bubble. It was a relief because I had already paid a lot of money for it. I already paid. Thankfully, I could get out.
Mhm.
And that's why I went to you right away for advice. And you said, yeah. And I was like, wow, okay, thank you. Because I don't know where I would be. I don't know how I would have, yeah, I don't know the type of person or type of coach I would have become or anything like that. But yeah, so anyway, I want to appreciate and call you out and be grateful for you. See that there's some reciprocity, but in a different light, right? So you see, it was at the right
Thank
time,
you.
and yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Um,
Um,
1 second here. I want to just
and you
get
know what?
to.
Say, I'll tell you
Go ahead. Go ahead.
something.
Go ahead.
So I've basically, in situations, whether it's interviewing or meetings or, different situations where there's a group, um, being told I'm aggressive or not the word bitch, but you may as well have said it. And my response is always the same. You can, I have an opinion and I'm willing to share it. Now you can interpret it that way, but that's not what this is. And so that again comes to judgment. So especially when people see someone willing to be the only person in the room who disagrees,
Yeah.
it's easier to say, oh, that person's difficult, or that person's, just trying to make things difficult. No, they just they just have the courage to be honest and
Yeah.
don't care how it likes. Um, but that can also work against you.
It could. Yeah, because
And
there's
and it
definitely,
mostly
yeah.
it
Sometimes
does.
there's just someone who wants to disrupt all of the time, like just constantly, go against the grain all the time, and I'm not sure that is productive or
No,
not.
no,
Right?
no, no, no. That's just, that's different.
Yeah.
No, that's a different situation,
Yeah.
right?
Totally. Hang on a
Um,
second. I want to give. So Narcissa is here, and she also says, I'm reading on my iPad. Um, the message sounds good to them, but owning their crap is a different story. Thank you. Okay, it looks like we're all caught up there. And Kay is on this one here. So it takes such love to come from there, Lauren, but it reflects faith that empathy can lead the way in those tough but necessary conversations. We might be a little bit behind on the conversation here, but thank you for that, Kay. Do you know what that's
yeah.
in response to?
Yes, in that you can say hard things and still be kind,
Right.
right? You can still say it in a way, because if you're not, then that person's not going to receive it. Then you may as well not say it.
Right on. Love that. So we're talking today about scarcity, whether you can have scarcity and an abundance mindset at the same time. I think we've agreed that you cannot like live that
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to sum it up?
There's something, there's some things that you can't predominantly, right? There's always exceptions,
Mm-hmm.
but two things can't exist at the same time. Like you can't be worried and happy at the same time,
Right.
you know? And so if you're generous, we can all slip into whatever it is. I can slip into rage, I can slip into anger, I can slip into being a bitch or mean. I know I can, but that's not how I roll.
Right.
And so, so do you, so if so bottom line is, I think we both believe that they can't equally exist together.
Right. Right.
And even a little bit different. Like 60/40 is like, it's got to be polar. It's got to be like 10/90, right?
Exactly. I believe that.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's
Yeah, if
so
you're a giver, if you're a giver, you have an abundance mindset, you either have that or you don't. And that's the way you operate. And
you can
okay.
change.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Oh my god, it's like we're on the same wavelength. We didn't even
We
talk
are.
about this. Can you be something, live a lot of your life this way, but all of a sudden you change? And the answer to me is yes, because I think I remember
So
being
here's the thing: is that I don't think you change all of a sudden. You have to work really hard
mhm.
to change.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: whatever that is that you've changed, it doesn't go away. It's like, when we said, like, the image of like it gets smaller in the distance, it becomes, much smaller. It's not as prevalent. If it shows up, it's not at the same magnitude, but it can show up, right? So I'm a people pleaser. I was for probably 35 years of my life. That's still in me. But the difference now is it doesn't show up as often. When it does, I recognize it in a nanosecond, and I can course correct. So when people are surprised, they go, "Oh, like I thought I dealt with this. I thought I left this behind." You did, but there's still remnants of it. And so the bottom line is, you absolutely can change, but you also have to remember that those things that we've changed, they don't go away. They've just been diminished,
They've
but
been
they can be
suppressed.
triggered. They can, right, or they've been contained, but they can pop up. But again, it's like the scarcity generosity. It's not as often. It's absolutely not as often. When it does, hopefully you recognize it. You've got tools to manage it that you maybe didn't have before, but it can pop up. So, we get triggered. Things
Maybe
get under our skin.
maybe there's a part two to this because as you're speaking, I'm thinking back in my own life and when I changed into, you know, and removed things out of my life. And I think it has a lot to do with environment. If you
Yes.
grew up in scarcity in an environment and you're naturally a giver, you might be in the scarcity mindset, but then all of a sudden you're introduced to something different and you're like, huh, which is kind of what happened to me. Um, and then you get in because I know this because I would grow up, or just being in the mediocrity of like, how's it going? Well, same crap, same day or different day, blah, 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 whatever. Nothing ever works for me. Dealt the wrong hand of cards, like all that stuff. And it's like, okay, that's just the way the world is. And then I saw a different part of the world and different worldviews and like, huh. And then I stepped into that and it was like, this is really feels great. And then I went back to more of another area which was not that way. It was just different. And I really felt like a fish out of water. So I knew that I was
Mm.
in the right zone to be where I am today, but I grew up maybe more in a, well, I don't get as much as everybody else, and that's why I didn't like rich people back then and had all this, why them and look at how they're idiots and they're bad people and all these things, right? Because I didn't have it all, so I was probably more of a scarcity mindset. I'm not going to give this to you, but I don't know. Like I have to really to think about this because I have to like
And yes,
think about.
no, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, as I'm saying this, it feels wrong to me to say that. Yeah, I was a scarcity person, and then now I'm not because I don't feel that. I feel as though part of my upbringing was still wanting to give, even if I didn't have a lot of money or whatever it is. So I don't know. I have to rethink this. So, well, yeah, have maybe another
And
discussion
so
around it.
here's, yeah, and this is a great topic. So here's another thing, and it might be obvious, it might not be. Maybe it's obvious, feels obvious to me because this is what we do, is that where anytime we overreact to something where the reaction is disproportionate to the situation, you know you've been triggered,
Can
right?
you give me an example?
So, yeah. So if, let me think of an example. If I, let's just say, okay, let's just say I get someone to clean my house, right? And I come home and it's not how I wanted it or how I expected it. And I just get in like a rage about it. It's not about that. It's not about that the things weren't put back where I wanted it. It's not about that one thing was missed, right? But if we're not self-aware enough, then we justify and go, we make a story about it, and it's a good story and it's a true story because it is. But that's not the real story. And that's where you know that you've been triggered. And if you're not going to take the time to think, okay, so why am I really reacting to what's really going on? Then you don't grow either. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it does because as you're speaking about this, I'm constantly growing with my assistant. And we had this discussion the other day. We discuss we have meetings every Monday, but we and it's and one time or sometimes we get into like deeper discussions just randomly, you know. And we had this one discussion just a couple of weeks ago where this is funny because I've asked her even now, can you validate or can you update the information that I put in about working with me? Because I think one way. Here's how an ADD person is. So I have this document that you when you're working with me or want to work with me, I go read this. If you can't
Mm-hmm.
handle this, please don't work with me. Right. So that was my perspective of understanding how I work. So I asked her to go in and update it. And then one thing that she said to me, because I will get like that, I will trigger on something that is important or I think is important. I'm like, man. And this is how I know it's growth because she'll say, she said, yeah, you do this. And then normally I would get angry at that or I'd quit or something like that because I'm blowing up at her. I'm getting mad at her. It doesn't happen all the time, but like, some things is like, holy crap, right? Like, and
I
Kath, I know
can't
you're
imagine
watching
that, but
this.
anyhow,
She's
I
watching, I
can't
know,
imagine that, but
right? So that would, and then she said, which is I'm grateful for. She said, but then you take the time to explain it. You take the time to explain like why you did that. So it doesn't happen right away, but it might be a day later, or it might be an hour or two later. Go, here's the reason why, because I'm reflecting like on what you just said. I'm just validating what you just said, Lauren. Is that I'm reflecting on? Wait a minute, what's the real story here? Like, why did I get upset about
mm,
that little thing? And then I'm trying to look inward to say, well, this is the reason why. And it has to do a lot the way that I'm thinking, the way they operate, and all that. But still, I have seen myself grow since hiring her because of me wanting to grow and wanting to help and wanting people to understand. And that's why I'm asking for her feedback to say, what is it from your side? Like,
mm.
what do you see when I do these things? What do you, so I can see it from the other perspective so I can learn to be better. So I'm glad that you brought that
I love this.
up.
Just
Yeah, me too.
people and how we think and how everything that makes us do, say what we do. Oh, I could just geek out. I do geek out on it.
Me too. Me too.
It's fascinating.
Here's final comment from Kay, and then I got one over here from Collie. Do you want to read that from Kay?
But it takes such love to come from there, Lauren, but it reflects faith that empathy can lead the way in the. Oh, but no, no, that's from before. That's an old comment.
It was? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm behind in the comments. Okay. So Collie says, yes, I too have stopped chasing Ambulances? No, abundance or ambulances. Okay, she says ambulances. I'll read it the way she wrote it because she's laughing. So yes, I too have stopped chasing ambulances. Haha, love and soul hugs. So that might have been in response to something I already forgot. So I apologize for that. Okay, um, that's it for today. I think we've hammered this one out enough. I know that we can go on for another couple of hours, and we'll save that for another episode. I'm sure that we can get into a whole bunch of stuff. Thank you for being here live. Thank you for spending your time with us, whether it was a minute, 10 minutes, or the whole hour, whatever it was. Thank you for being here. We will see you next Tuesday again for another Heart Center Marketing. And Lauren, thank you as always for bringing up an amazing topic.
Oh, thank
The
you for
time
having
just
me. I
flies
love
with
it.
you.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. Thank you, Joey. Love doing
Thank you.
this.
Thank you. We'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone.